Discovered Bar Rescue years ago, and I am obsessed with this show. It's one of the best shows on TV. It is reality television at its finest. The man who is in charge of that show, who does such a great job, is, of course, Jon Taffer. He just got an exclusive interview with Donald Trump. I want to play a little clip of this. This is Jon Taffer asking Donald Trump, the President of the United States, what he would say to restaurant operators. Have a listen to this. This is Jon Taffer himself with an exclusive interview with the President of the United States. Have a listen.
These people.
All I say to them is hang on, hang in, it's coming back, and it'll be better than before. Because if we can do a couple of the things like deductibility, you understand as a real restaurateur, you understand exactly what I mean. If we get deductibility and some other things back, the restaurant business will be better than it was before. And this is the time to get things. I mean, normally you could never even think about deductibility. But because of the fact that things aren't so good in that business, this is the time we can actually get it done. If you would have told me 2 years ago, let's go for deductibility, they would have laughed at me. But now we can get it. And if we get that, it'll be better than ever.
Very interesting interview. And, of course, the man who conducted that interview, the star of Bar Rescue himself, joining us right now on the line. Happily, Jon Taffer joins us. Jon, thanks for coming on. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, Brian. Good to talk to you today. It's been a heck of a week.
Congratulations, by the way, on landing this interview. This is a big deal. What is it like for you when you first learned that Donald Trump agreed to sit down with you for a one-on-one interview? That's a pretty cool moment in your career. I mean, you've done a lot of cool things, but this is pretty cool.
It was very cool, and I was told after the interview by President's press corps that he had 35,000 interview requests that week.
Oh.
And so he chose mine. But, you know, I also reached out to the Biden camp on the same day with the same proposal. Mm-hmm. And my view was that, look, you know, we're in Nevada, we're in Las Vegas, we're dependent upon tourism and travel for our local economies, that all the national news is not covering the specifics of the stimulus and what each of these candidates would do for our industry. Mm-hmm. And I felt it was critical to get commitments on the table of the programs that they would do. And I was successful in that. I got the president to commit to 4 programs. Each one of them is meaningful to us in Nevada. Right. And it was interesting, Brian, because I started the interview, and of course, anybody can watch it on the Jon Taffer podcast, I started it by saying, sir, you know, I've stayed in your hotels, I've eaten in your restaurants, I've been in your casinos. You know, I've always thought of you as a hospitality guy, which I did, Brian, you know, as a New Yorker growing up.
Sure.
So you're one of us.
Right.
And you know, do you love the industry? And you know, he talked about he does love the industry. He's connected to our industry. He's invested in our industry. So you would think that he would have a certain soft spot to seeing us succeed.
No question.
I believe he does.
No question.
And I believe he does.
So let me ask you this, Jon, because you're the one that sat down with him. So for people out there, the skeptics that would say, well, wait a second, Jon, it's great that you got all those things for him to agree upon, but where was this 3.5 years ago? What would be your response to that?
Well, I don't know what that means. You know, I remember pre-pandemic, a year ago this month, nobody was complaining about the economy then.
Right.
Our biggest problem was we couldn't find employees because unemployment was so low. It was a big problem for the industry. So, you know, I would suggest that people look back to October last year and remember where we were then. So you know, I think everything is a consequence of COVID. Yeah. You know, we can pick apart what happened with COVID and what didn't, but you know, when you look at the world statistics, everybody's dealing with this.
Sure.
And nobody has found the secret sauce, Brian. You know that.
No, there's no question about that. I agree. I wanted to ask you this, like, you know, not a lot of people have actually had an opportunity to sit down with the president and see him even before the interview, after the interview. Can you share with us a moment that surprised you or something about the president that you're like, oh, I didn't know that about you? Even not, because I watched the whole interview. Before or after, can you share with us, what was that experience like? And was there anything involved in that time, that the short time you spent with the president, that surprised you at all?
Yeah, and it's probably going to surprise you what I say. And the word I would use is graciousness.
Really? Wow.
You know, the president was really busy. He was on his way to Arizona to the rally. This was Wednesday morning at Trump International. So he had just done a press conference. He was doing another press conference after me. So we're in a meeting room. We're set up. I expected him to rush in, rush out, do what he needed to do mechanically.
Right.
You know, he was so gracious. He was kind. He took pictures with my whole crew, called one of my crew guys handsome, told me how beautiful my wife was. This was an exceptionally gracious guy, and I was a little surprised by that. I certainly expected him to be polite, Brian, and to be professional.
Right.
I did not expect that level of graciousness.
So, John, let me ask you this. In regards to that, you're a showman. You do a great job. You're a very nice man. People that I know that know you personally, nothing but nice things about you, John. Now, part of your, I guess, shtick, and I love your show, by the way, Bar Rescue. I'm a huge fan. But some of it is brutal, but I enjoy it. Sometimes you swear at these bar managers. It's great TV, and I love it. Sometimes you can be rude. It's part of what you do. So the reason why I'm asking you this, John, is for this reason. Why is it that we see Donald Trump say rude things on social media or to people that he doesn't like? Do you think it's his shtick, or do you think this is who he actually is? I think you're the perfect person to ask this question to.
I think that the president is not the most disciplined person when it comes to staying on message. I think that he reacts. I think he's emotional. I think he's well-meaning, but I think that he's in a fight mode. And I think, because of the way he came into office, and I'm just analyzing it,
right.
And you could, I think the way he came into office, it started with a fight. Every day was a fight. He just got in a fight mode, and I think he's been in that fight mode ever since. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame, because I think there was a lot of opportunities to pull people together.
Right.
COVID was an opportunity, I believe, to pull us all together.
Yeah.
So I think there was opportunities lost. But, personally, I don't vote for people. Personally, I vote for policies, and I don't shoot the messenger when it's a good message. Mm-hmm. So in my personal view, policies aside, I got a guy in the White House who's a hospitality guy. He understands what average daily rate is. He understands what food costs and labor costs, the pressures of our business, the financing pressures of our business. He loves our industry. He's a solid businessman. So to me, as a hospitality guy, that feels really good to me.
So speaking of policy, John, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they've discussed $15 minimum wage. Individual mandate was included in Obamacare. If those two things worked hand in hand, how bad would that be for the restaurant industry in the United States?
Oh, it could be devastating, particularly for smaller independent restaurants. Let's layer on top higher energy costs, and let's layer on top a tax increase. So when we start to layer those things, again, as a hospitality guy, being non-political, looking at business elements,
right.
That's horrifying. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
And it puzzles me how a hospitality person could vote for that.
Right.
It's a very, very important election for our industry.
Yeah, especially after COVID-19 and what's happened.
Critical. Yeah, it's critical that the person in the White House care about us, care about our industry, and it concerns me.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I support Donald Trump is I believe I'm a capitalist through and through, and I'm a small business owner. But as a small business owner, with what Joe Biden is discussing and what's happened with COVID-19, and I believe we're going to get a solid stimulus after the election's over either way.
Yep.
I don't see how a small business owner. I'm not talking 500 employees. I'm talking a micro business under 50 employees. I don't see, and that would be a restaurant most likely. But I don't see how a small business owner at this point could vote for Joe Biden. Do you?
It makes no sense to me. And, so we talk about tweets and non-official communications and personality and attitude. I understand that that's disturbing to people, but we've all worked for bosses that we didn't like, but we respected. It's interesting. I heard an interesting thing from a religious leader the other day. Moses wasn't the nicest guy in the world, but he had the tablet.
Well, you're right. That's fair.
So he was welcomed because of the tablet.
No, that's fair.
I'm not sure that a success and aggressiveness travels without the other side.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jon Taffer from Bar Rescue. Okay, John, so let's have a little discussion about that. I have the utmost respect for you, John. Let me just say that. You're an extremely intelligent guy, very successful. And like I said, I'm a fan of yours. I love your show. But I think we think a little differently, and that's okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. I myself, unlike my co-host, I'm not a Trump supporter. Now, I'm not in the service industry, but here's my opinion. You can tell me where you think I might be wrong here. Let's just say Donald Trump does everything right if he's reelected for people in the hospitality business. My qualms with him are not just tweets, but I believe his rhetoric is dangerous, the way he attacks the media every day. I also think that the way he's handled this coronavirus is a complete disaster. I think he downplayed this virus from day one. I think he lies a lot. And I don't want, and while I totally get your point, and there's a lot of people like you, John, that say, listen, I don't really care as much about the man as I care about policy, and I respect that. Those are the Trump supporters that I respect. However, I just think he's a bad guy. Now, I appreciate your story, and I have no doubt you're telling us the truth. He treated you great. I've heard those stories. We had Judge Janine on from Fox News a few weeks ago, and she told me very similar things about the president, how nice he is to her, and that's great. But I just think he's very divisive. I think he said some misogynistic and racist things, even over the course of the last 3.5 years. For example, the Squad, when he told them to go back to where they came from. I just think when you're the president of the United States, and I think you will agree with me on this, we have to hold you to a higher standard than two people talking at the water cooler. Some of his policies are working, no doubt about that. But I look at this pandemic now, where close to 250,000 people have lost their lives. We recently had the worst quarter in economic history. I understand we just had the best comeback in economic history. I understand that. There's a lot of people are suffering. I don't think he shows enough empathy. I think we have the most racial divide possibly we've ever had since I've been alive. So, John, those are my reasons why I can't support this president. I totally respect your opinion, and I agree with a lot of what you said about the policy point. I talked to a lot of Republicans that say that. Where do you disagree with me on what I just said?
Well, first of all, probably 70% of what you said is assumption and opinion. I want to start right there. When you say things like you didn't handle the COVID crisis properly, I think you need to pull numbers and really statistically analyze that, because we had a vaccine company release just yesterday that they will have distributed 50 million doses by December. That means we would have created a vaccine in 11 months. Historic. We have 700 million doses that are already paid for. We have 3 different types of vaccines being produced. You see, the president focused on the solution, and the solution was a vaccine. And he put all of his resources, or a vast majority of his resources, to achieve, and I sit on a board of one of the largest hospitals in the world, and I can say this is a fact. He achieved the impossible in the development and this distribution of this vaccine. So, I question your opinions, to be honest with you, and you know what the first 3 letters of assume are. And I think that a lot of what you say is assumptive. I think a lot of what you say is part of a wave of feelings and attitudes. But when you pick it apart, the peace deals in Israel, historic, monumental. Economic growth, historic, monumental. Unemployment, historic, monumental. Unemployment for minorities, historic, monumental. New small business starts, historic, monumental. So, I think that when we assume and put opinions into the mix and separate them from facts, we all lose. And I would suggest that to put those things on the radio, you should have the facts a little tighter, candidly.
Okay, well, let's talk about the vaccine, and let me talk about Israel. Those are great things. I hope he comes up with this vaccine. But to me...
They are, but I got to share with you, I'm not interested in a political debate with you, candidly.
No, that's fair enough, and that's totally cool. I was just giving you my perspective, and I certainly appreciate and respect yours, John. There's no question about that.
As I do yours.
Yeah.
But I think you have some fact-checking work to do, candidly.
Well, that's fair. We don't have to dive deep into that. That's fine. Like I said, I
imagine you wouldn't want to dive deep in it, because that might be an embarrassing exercise for you.
Well, I that's where we would disagree, John. But like I said, I respect your opinion wholeheartedly, and I appreciate you giving me that answer. I really do. And there's a lot of Trump supporters out there like yourself that have given me that same answer, and I do respect that. With that being said, let's move on now and let's talk about the service industry. Let's talk about these bars in Las Vegas and in the state of Nevada. As you know, John, there's a lot of bars that are still struggling out there at 50% capacity. There's a lot of people out there that have lost their businesses. I would imagine you've probably spoken to many of these business owners that are still struggling because of COVID. Can you share us some of your stories? I mean, I would imagine these are some bar owners that have done things the right way, that are good people, right, John? And now they're out of work, they're struggling, they're unemployed, they lost their business. What do you tell them, John Taffer? Like, what advice do you give people like that?
It's devastating. I have a friend who put his life savings into opening a bar and restaurant. And son of a gun, the week he opened, COVID hit. So he never even got to open, but he lost over $1 million.
Wow.
The stories are devastating. The worst stories of all are the employee stories. I think of all the bartenders in our city and the waitresses in our city and how we were doing a year ago, and whammo, the impact. And I would be less than honest if I didn't tell you it brings tears to my eyes. But I want to share a different view, if I can, a positive view.
Sure.
All science indicates that we will have vaccines in distribution in 90 days or so. Mm-hmm. Now, capacity has gone down in the restaurant business for sure, particularly in markets other than Las Vegas. When people get the vaccine, here's my feeling. I believe when you get the vaccine, the next thing you're going to do is go out to dinner. I believe that. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's what's going to happen around the country. And when we do market research and pent-up demand. So let's think about this for a moment. Vaccine hits hard in January, February, March. Even Fauci said we'd have 700 million vaccines by April 1. So let's assume by April 1 everybody is vaccinated who wants to be. Right. It's now those who want to be safe are safe. Everybody's going to go out again. And capacity is down in most markets and restaurants hugely. So I would suggest that this spring has an opportunity to be boomtown.
Wow.
And I would suggest that operators really understand the power of this. Now, I have my Taffers Tavern franchise.
Yep.
And we just opened in Atlanta. We're doing very, very well. We sold franchises like crazy because operators are saying there's great locations becoming available all across America. We want to get them.
Right.
So there's a view that from this comes excitement.
Right.
So I believe, and I say this to Las Vegas, come this spring, I believe that we're going to have an exciting opportunity. I believe international travel is going to be far less, which means domestic travel is going to be far more exciting. Mm-hmm. If the president implements the domestic travel incentives that we talked about in my interview, that's big for us here in Las Vegas.
Right.
So I suggest that we hold our money, hold our resources, and get ready. Because I think this spring is going to be a fantastic opportunity for us all.
I think that's great advice, John, and I tend to agree with you. I'm one of those people. I get a vaccine, then I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to go out there, and I'm still trying to do whatever I can to help businesses out there and support business. But it's very interesting what you're saying. You're saying, and I tend to agree with you, that when people, and I hope these people do take these vaccines, that kind of like scared attitude and not going out is going to change, and it's going to be a big economic boom. I agree with them. I totally agree.
And Brian, Anthony Fauci is the one yesterday that said that the most vulnerable people in the United States will have a vaccine by the end of December.
I hope so.
We're talking 2 months away. So
I hope so.
It's around the corner. John, I wanted to ask you about Las Vegas. In my opinion, Governor Sisolak has done a very, very poor job of recognizing that Las Vegas' economy is different than California's and joining that Western Pact and things of that nature. What do you think about Sheldon Adelson trying to sell the Sands Corporation, which is the Venetian and the Palazzo, but not sell what he has going on in Macau? Do you think that is kind of a negative referendum on what he believes the future of Las Vegas is? Because he said himself that he believes that the convention industry is not going to come back ever again.
Well, I don't agree with Sheldon in this case. I understand him wanting to sell the asset. They do far more dollars in Macau than they do in Las Vegas in profitability, and it's a public company, so everybody knows that. Substantially more in Macau from a cash flow standpoint. So I could understand that in value. The convention business scares me. I used to run the nightclub and bar convention, and I was in the trade show business for years. And every digital company is creating virtual trade shows, virtual this, virtual that. It's almost the Instacart, if you will, of trade shows. And everything is being in place, from samples arriving in 24 hours and chat windows. And so technology is our enemy in the trade show business, and they're trying to take it from us. It's critical that we as a city don't allow too many conventions to skip, because the worst thing that happens in the convention business is when an industry doesn't have their convention that year, and then things are fine anyway. Then they realize they don't need it. That's when it gets
right. Like for example, the NFR this year going to Texas. They're still having the convention in Texas. They're having the convention. It's just not happening in Las Vegas.
Of course. Again, if you're just joining us, it's John Taffer from Bar Rescue. Just spoke to the President of the United States in an interview. He did a great job. A couple more quick questions, John, then we'll let you go. We appreciate your time. So I want to go back to what you just said, because I think this is very important. You're talking about an economic boom when we get this vaccine. I agree with you. I think most people would. So if you're somebody that has a little money saved aside and your dream is to open up a bar, wouldn't it be fair to say in a few months might be the best time to maybe open up a new bar or restaurant? I mean, wouldn't that make sense?
It does make sense. Now, that would be market-driven, of course.
Right.
But absolutely. I am.
Really? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I just opened the Taffers Tavern in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Wow.
It opened yesterday.
I didn't know that. Tell us about that. That's cool. What does it look like in there?
Well, it's a Taffers Tavern. It's an upscale tavern environment. I've been working on it 2 years. We created the safest kitchen in the world. It is all computerized, robotic, very specialized cooking, contactless cooking. You'll see a whole bunch of stories on it next week when we go public with it. But we opened quietly this week, and it's the kitchen of the future, the bar of the future, and we're very, very excited about it. It has great food.
That's
kind
awesome.
of cocktails you'd expect Taffer to have. And
that's great.
the first one opened in Alpharetta, Georgia, right in the middle of the pandemic. I got to tell you, we opened last night quietly. You guys will get a kick out of this. We opened last night quietly and did big numbers.
Oh, wow.
Quiet. So
That's
I
great.
just want restaurateurs to understand there's opportunity out there.
Hey, that sounds like a silent majority, John.
Yeah, it's worth hanging in there, guys. It really is.
I hear you. What would it? This is my dream, John, because you're one of my favorite characters, personalities on television. What do you think it would look like if Gordon Ramsay walked into your place of business and, in a way, criticized you the way at times you criticize bars, just for the sake of television? Would you ever be open to something like that? Because here you have some of the biggest names, on television when it comes to food and the industry and bars. Would you be open to that? Because I would love a scene between you and Gordon Ramsay. I think that would be like, Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield back in the day. What do you think about that?
It's funny that you say that. I'll tell you something I've never said publicly before. We've discussed the television show, Taffer versus Ramsay, or
Yes.
Ramsay versus Taffer.
Yes.
And the idea has been tossed around. It's just we both are in contracts right now with opposite networks. So, unfortunately, you guys know this being in radio. It's not so easy to pull that kind of thing off. But I hope we can. Gordon and I are friends, and we would love to do it. It'd be a blast.
I'm telling you right now, it would get monster ratings. Not like you don't get ratings with Bar Rescue. You get monster ratings there. You two guys are some of my favorite personalities on television. You guys have to make this work. I know you're in contracts and stuff, but I think it would be one of the best reality shows on television right now. I hope you guys are able to do that.
So, John, we know the Las Vegas Strip.
So, John, I can tell you, Gordon is a great guy.
He is.
I hope we do get a chance to.
He is.
So, John, we know the Las Vegas Strip has been it's been in trouble lately, but the Fremont Street had just opened up a brand new casino, Circa. Have you gotten a chance to do a tour of that casino, or have you gotten a chance to see that casino? And if you have, what are your thoughts on it?
I haven't had a chance to tour it. However, Derek Stevens is a friend of mine, and I saw some plans, and I'm excited about it. I think that new entry in downtown is terrific for us. It's the first new hotel. It's nice. It's tall. It's beautiful. I think the pool program he's put together is very, very interesting with the pool venue concept, and I'm excited about it. I think that it's a great little burst of adrenaline downtown.
Agree, and I'm going to be checking out the steakhouse this weekend.
Are you?
It looks fantastic. Cool. John, you are a legend in this business. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours, and I always appreciate it when you take some time to join us. It's a great service to the community when you're always constantly giving people advice about this industry. You help a lot of people along the way while doing a fantastic show. Thank you for being able to sit down with the president and also sharing those stories with us. We really appreciate it. Great discussion, John. Keep up the great work, my friend, and look forward to catching up with you soon, okay?
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right.
Thanks a lot, John.
That is John Taffer from Bar Rescue.